Right. So we worked with El Salvador early on to pass their Bitcoin law, and then we also advised them on their digital securities law that would allow them to become what they hope to be the Singapore of Latin America. So a financial center with digital assets like securities issued in their country and regulated by their country. And I think they've recently just set up their regulator, so that is moving forward. But basically, El Salvador transformed itself by adopting a Bitcoin strategy, and they've seen a lot of success from that, from their traditional bonds rallying in the marketplace, their credit rating being upgraded to a B minus, and just general increase in investment in tourism across the board. And I think their GDP last year increased by double digits. So they're doing quite well for themselves. And it's really because they've taken a longer term approach to nation state development and trying to build prosperity for everybody involved.
Yeah, now, what specifically did they do? Did they make Bitcoin legal tender?
Yep. So they did a lot of things. They made Bitcoin legal tender. They've added Bitcoin to their balance sheet, so as a treasury asset. They've also started mining. They started mining with their national utility first, and then later on they did a public-private partnership called Volcano Energy, which has attracted $1 billion of investment from people like Tether and other investors in the space. So they're basically pushing forward on all possible Bitcoin adoption paths. So Bitcoin as a legal tender, Bitcoin as an asset, and mining Bitcoin.
Okay, so is that the sort of thing, like if, let's say, some government around the world, and obviously don't need to disclose anything personal or that's proprietary, but can you just give us an idea? Like, let's say I'm a government official, like a low-level official in the treasury or somewhere, and they say, you know what, we see El Salvador, we see this guy, Samson Mao, on various pockets. Go talk to his people and just get an idea. What are you gonna, if I come to you and I'm somewhat skeptical, but yeah, our country is second tier in terms of the economic growth, and whatever, we're worried about bank panics and things, and so what are we doing? Like, you maybe just starting from scratch just to make the case that what would you say to such a person?
Well, I think we will just talk to them about the opportunities that Bitcoin presents to them. So if you look at the world, most of the global south countries that are still developing, they are actually decently rich in energy. They just have no ability to monetize that energy. So if you look at just geothermal potential, number one in the world is Philippines, and it's not the wealthy nation yet. Mm-hmm. Then number two is Indonesia for geothermal. But if you go down the list of energy potential, a lot of these countries have massive amounts of energy. It's just not in the form of oil. So if you're the UAE or Saudi Arabia and you have oil under your feet, you can dig it up, put it into a barrel, and sell that to somebody else. But if you have geothermal potential or hydro potential or anything else, you can't really do anything with it except for sell it to a neighboring country if you have excess. But what Bitcoin does is it allows countries to monetize that, to mine Bitcoin with their excess energy and effectively take that money, sell the Bitcoin. If they don't want it, they should keep it, but they can sell it if they want, and build roads, build airports, build hospitals, do whatever they think is valuable to develop their country. So it's opportunities like these that I think are interesting to politicians with goals on a longer time horizon. So the challenge, I think, with politics and governments is they're very short-sighted. Everyone's working on a 4-year time horizon because that's all you've got, and maybe one election or two. But I think with Bitcoin, it changes the thinking that you have to build for the next 100 years or several hundred years, because in 4 years, it's difficult to accomplish that much. So I think this alignment of incentives and this opportunity to lift themselves out of that poverty is a big draw for politicians around the world.
Okay, so let me just try to translate what you just said there and tell me if I'm getting the spirit of it correct. So the idea is there are plenty of places around the world, you listed a few, where they have the ability to have a high capacity of electrical generation, but it's not necessarily, they don't have a huge city sitting right there that could just absorb whatever 20 gigawatt of energy right away. And so they might say, well, what's the point? of having international investors come in here to build that because we don't have the industry to go with it. And then you're saying, oh, but right now there is something like rather than building it and then powering up a bunch of batteries and then trying to sell the batteries, that's just not very cost effective. Instead, you can effectively translate your domestically produced electricity into mined bitcoins. And that's the way you turn your electrical potential into revenue.
Exactly.
Is
Yeah, I would say that's an accurate summary. And most countries do have excess. So Indonesia, I think they have a few gigawatts of excess capacity. And they just need someone to come out and say, we embrace Bitcoin and we want Bitcoin mining companies to come in. If you have untapped potential, you could issue an instrument like a Bitcoin bond, which I helped design for El Salvador, to raise capital and take that capital to build out a hydro dam or build out a geothermal facility and then mine Bitcoin to pay the coupon on that. And well, the design I had was 50% would be invested in Bitcoin holdings and held for a 5 to 10 year period. So that appreciation of the Bitcoin holdings there could actually eliminate debt on a lot of these countries that are in the developing world, and they could be debt free in 10 years.
Okay, great. Can you speak to it a bit to like suppose more and more people started embracing that, how far could that be pushed? Like, is that something like, there's low hanging fruit for the first 5 countries that do that, but then the industry would be crowded, or is it not like that?
Yeah, I would say probably 5 to 10 countries can take advantage of the low Bitcoin price right now and achieve something very spectacular by adopting a Bitcoin strategy soon. After that, the ability to get outsized returns or asymmetric returns is probably going to diminish as more and more come on. Because right now, there's still an opportunity to be a first mover. El Salvador is number 1, but no, the slot number 2 and 3 and 4 are still open. And I think the countries that take that opportunity will become global superpowers in the future.
Hey, everybody, this is Bob Murphy. Thanks for listening to this clip from the InFi podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, please consider subscribing and share this video with others. We've got new episodes dropping every Friday with more insightful discussions. Stay tuned.